He wasn't running, he wasn't crying, he wasn't even sure he was allowed to speak. But when Prince Louis stopped in front of the royal guard, pale, shaking, fists clenched, he whispered something so quiet it almost didn't reach the man's ears. And yet those 7 words about what he saw Thomas do, about how Charlotte didn't fight back, about the bruises that were already there were enough to make a decorated Coldstream Guard drop to his knees, not from grief, not from guilt, but from the kind of shock that shatters training. What followed didn't just expose a predator. It detonated the illusion of safety inside Windsor Castle. So, before we show you the moment the guard stood up and made sure Charlotte would never be hurt again, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Smash like, tap subscribe, and make sure the bell icon is on. Because when a guard drops to his knees, it means someone finally told the truth. Windsor Castle was quiet. Not the public quiet of scheduled tours or horrorfully managed media appearances, but the deeper kind, the inner silence of trust. The kind built over centuries, where every corridor had been measured, every door had a protocol, and every child raised inside its stone walls could roam freely without fear. Sergeant Alaric Thorne stood at his internal post near the residential corridor junction. His posture hadn't shifted in nearly 40 minutes. Tall, still scarlet uniform pressed flat against his chest, bearskin hat sitting square on his head. Hands relaxed near the black rifle strap across his front. Not gripping, not posturing, just present. He wasn't guarding a gate or a ceremony, no procession, no rehearsed turns. This was internal duty, the kind of watch rotation that filtered only the most trusted, the kind where nothing ever happened. And that was exactly why it mattered. Alaric's career stretched back nearly 2 decades. Before Windsor, before Sandringham, before the thick collar of the Coldstream Guard's uniform had ever been his second skin, there had been Kandahar, 2 deployments, 1 evacuation, 3 stints of urban riot containment in London. He'd held the line while protesters surged with smoke grenades and broken bottles. He'd stood against flashbangs and civilian panic. But here children played, and he made sure nothing touched them. The corridor today was still, carpeted in shadowed quiet. Afternoon light cut clean through the arched windows at the far end. It was too early for evening movements, too late for lessons. This was the safest space in Britain, and he knew it. The pacing was routine. Occasional aides passed. A butler rolled a linen cart softly over the stone. Somewhere distant, a page turned in a study room. A steward's shoes clicked once, then disappeared into the silence. But nothing out of place, nothing strange, no sound of argument, no raised voices, no slammed doors, no panicked running, all the signs of breach that lived under Thorne's skin after war. He stood like carved marble, half man, half institution, until he heard the footsteps, not running, not heavy, just soft, light, off rhythm. Prince Louis, Alaric didn't move, didn't tilt his head, just waited for the child to come into view. The boy turned the corner slowly, not with his usual mischief, not with the half-jog, half-dance gait of a child recently ungrounded, not with that wide, curious stare that took in every dust mote. Like it was treasure, he looked small. His shirt was pressed, collar neat, trousers sharp, but his hands were clenched at his sides, fingers twitching once, then squeezing into little fists. His pace was slow, almost measured. His head wasn't tilted up in royal confidence. It was low, chin tucked slightly, breathing shallow. Alaric frowned inwardly, but did not speak. Children had moods. The castle was large. There were reasons, still something about it. Louis looked up finally, and their eyes met. Alaric said the words he always said, level and steady. "Good afternoon, sir." Normally that would trigger a grin or a joke. Today Louise just nodded, "Hello." One word, clipped, soft. The prince's lips parted again like he wanted to say something else, but then he glanced behind him. Just a quick flick over the shoulder. Nothing there, but his shoulders stiffened anyway, and that's when Alaric Thorne, the man who had held his ground under open fire, first felt it. Not danger, not fear, a disturbance in instinct, something that didn't belong in the safest corridor in Britain, and it was walking toward him, wearing polished shoes and a palace-blessed name. Prince Louis stopped about 4 feet from Sergeant Thorne and shifted his weight onto his heels. Not fidgeting, not restless, but like a boy who wasn't sure whether he was allowed to keep standing still. All Alaric let the silence breathe. Protocol dictated he acknowledge the child but not interrogate, not prompt, not investigate, not unless something had clearly occurred. But Louis was standing too close, too long, with the kind of tension only soldiers usually carried. The guard's voice when he spoke stayed neutral. "Are you meant to be somewhere, sir?" Louis blinked, once, then shook his head. "No, not yet." He didn't offer more. Didn't crack into a story about homework or tutors or corridors he wasn't supposed to explore. And he didn't smile. Instead, his eyes flicked back behind him again, nervous, darting like something might appear at the far end of the hallway. All Alaric tracked that glance. Empty stone, closed door, no movement. Still, he felt it in his gut. The boy wasn't looking for someone. He was checking whether someone else was looking. Louis stepped a little closer, just enough to bring his shoes within the guard's boot shadow. His hands remained tightly balled. Effort to he didn't expl, ain, everything to their unc, url, his chilled fingers. "Sir," Charlotte suddenly Lou, ia, voice thin, ensuring the our kids zard understood, the allowed to top situation without tons. It wasn't a game question, not a test of rules. There was no smile in it. Alaric's head tilted slightly, fractional movement only. "We're allowed to stop anyone who breaks protocol." Louis stared at that, then looked down. Another few seconds passed. Then came the next question. What if someone breaks rules but says it's a game? Alaric didn't answer right away because there was only one reason a child would ask that, and it wasn't curiosity. Louis' throat moved slightly, swallowing. He didn't look up this time, just added quieter. "What if they say, you'll get in trouble if you tell?" The guard didn't flinch, but his breath caught just enough that he knew he needed to ground himself. He looked at Louis' posture again, palms pale, where the fists had tightened, shoulders higher than normal, like he was hiding his neck without realizing it. Breath coming in small, controlled pulls through the nose, like someone afraid of making sound. That's not what children looked like after being scolded. That's what they looked like when they'd seen something they couldn't explain, or worse, something they understood perfectly but didn't have the language for. All Alaric shifted slightly, one soft pivot of his heel that brought him just a half step lower in stance. Not so much to make himself less imposing, more to say, "You can say it now if you want to." Louis opened his mouth once, closed it. He licked his lips nervously, tried again, then suddenly his whole face changed, eyes glossy, lips trembling, shoulders shaking for half a second before he forced them still. He looked up, looked the guard straight in the chest and said, "Never mind just that." Then stepped back, once like he was going to walk away, but his fists were still clenched and his chin was still shaking. He stopped again, maybe 3 steps from the guard's boots. His head hung low. His voice was so small it barely carried. "I think I'm going to get in trouble." Alaric didn't speak because whatever this was, whatever storm had pushed a child like Louis to the edge of speech, then retreated again, wasn't over. It was circling, waiting, and somewhere nearby was the reason the child couldn't say it out loud. Not yet. But soon, Prince Louis took one step back, then another. It wasn't retreat, it was recalculation, like he'd reached the edge of something and didn't know whether stepping forward would make it worse. Alaric Thorne watched the boy's breathing change. Not sobbing, not panic, suppression. Louis's chest rose shallowly, his jaw clenched tight enough that the muscle jumped once beneath his skin. His fists trembled now, not dramatically, just enough to notice if you were trained to notice small things breaking. And Alaric was. "Sir," the guard said quietly, lowering his voice without softening it, "you're not in trouble for asking questions." Louis shook his head. "Yes, I am," he whispered. "I'm not supposed to talk about it." That word, it landed heavy. Alaric didn't move. He didn't prompt. He didn't rush the moment because whatever this child was carrying had weight, and weight fell harder when pushed. Louis stepped forward again, too close now, well inside protocol distance. Without realizing it, his hand reached out and caught the front of Alaric's tunic, fingers clutching the scarlet fabric like it was something solid in a world that suddenly wasn't. "I didn't mean to look," Louis said, voice cracking. "I was hiding. I thought it was a game. The word came out wrong." Brittle, sharp, Alaric felt the air leave his lungs slowly, carefully. "Hiding where?" he asked. Louis swallowed hard. "By the stairs, the small ones, the one near the window, that stairwell." Alaric's stomach tightened. Louis' grip on the uniform tightened too. "I saw Thomas," he whispered. There it was, not shouted, not dramatic, just spoken like a fact the boy wished he could put back. Alaric didn't react outwardly, but something inside him shifted. A structural failure, silent and total. "What did you see, sir?" he asked. Louis squeezed his eyes shut. Then they opened and tears spilled immediately, uncontrolled, heavy, sliding down his cheeks without a sound. Louis choked, shaking his head. He pushed her. Alaric's hearing tunneled. The corridor seemed to stretch. "Who?" he asked, though he already knew. "Charlotte." The name hit like a blow to the chest. Louis sucked in a breath that hitched halfway in. He pushed her into the wall. Louis whispered, hard. She didn't scream. She didn't even say anything. She just hit the stone. Alaric felt his knees soften. "Not yet. Not yet." Louis's voice rushed now, words tumbling like they were afraid of being trapped again. He grabbed her arms like this. Louis raised his own forearms instinctively, then flinched at the motion. And she was trying not to cry. I could tell. Her face was all tight. Tears streamed freely now. She already had marks. Louis sobbed before he did it again. I saw them, purple ones, and one on her neck. And he said, Louis broke. A sound tore out of him, then not loud, not screaming, just roar. A child's breath shattering under something too big. "He told her not to make noise," Louis cried. "He said it would be worse if she did." Alaric's knees gave out. Not slowly, not dramatically, they gave way. He dropped to one knee hard enough that the stone floor bit through the fabric beneath. His gloved hand braced against the ground, fingers spread, breath coming sharp and uneven as the world narrowed to the sound of a child crying, and the echo of his own pulse roaring in his ears. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He stared at the floor, the same stone that had watched kings walk and children play, and felt something fundamental inside him fracture. Louis looked at him in panic. "I'm sorry." The boy sobbed. "I shouldn't have told. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe it was my fault for looking." All Alaric forced air into his lungs. in, out, in. This was not emotion. This was shock response. Years of training told him exactly what was happening to his body. The drop in blood pressure, the weakness in the legs, the involuntary grounding instinct. After catastrophic information, he pushed through it slowly. Deliberately, he lifted his head. Louis was crying openly now, tears soaking into the guard's tunic, where his hands still clutched the fabric like a lifeline. Alaric placed one steady hand over the boy's fingers, not pulling them away, not gripping back, just there. "You did the right thing," he said, his voice shook, not from fear, not from grief, but from the sheer effort of holding it together. "Do you understand me?" Louis shook his head wildly. "He said people wouldn't believe me. He said I'd get in trouble, too." All Alaric's jaw locked. "Look at me," he said. Louis hesitated, then looked. "You are not in trouble," Alaric said, each word deliberate, anchored, immovable. "And Charlotte is not alone anymore." Louis's breath hitched again. "Is she going to get hurt again? Because I told." Alaric didn't answer immediately, because the truth mattered. He straightened slowly, forcing his body upright, inch by inch, until he was standing again, knees steady now, spine locked, presence restored. Then he said, "No," and meant it, because whatever came next, whatever walls fell, whatever names were spoken, whatever power tried to close ranks, this corridor would not be silent again. Sergeant Alaric Thorne remained still. It was the stillness of someone who had heard the unhearable, and now had to choose whether to breathe or move first. Louis' fingers were still hooked in the red cloth of his tunic, trembling. His face was pale beneath the streaks of silent tears, but his eyes were wide open, searching the guard's expression, waiting for some kind of reaction that wouldn't come. "Come with me," Alaric said quietly, not a command, not protocol, a thread. He led the boy 5 paces into the corner alcove beside the secured corridor, tucked between a support pillar and the stone arch that led toward the southern study. It wasn't hidden, it just wasn't seen. Louis followed without question. The guard crouched, slow, deliberate, tall frame folding until he was just below the child's eye line. Not looming, not above, just present. "I need to ask you something," he said. "I'm not angry, you're not in trouble, but I need to know exactly what you saw." Louis hesitated. His lips trembled, but he nodded. Alaric lowered his voice again. "You said she already had marks." Louis nodded. "I saw purple ones on her arms and her leg. Was her clothing pulled up?" Louise blinked hard. "No, her coat. It was riding up when she tried to stand. She fixed it real fast." Alaric's stomach turned cold. "Could you see her face? Kind of." Louis' breath caught. She was crying without crying. "You know what I mean." Like her face looked like mine does when I try not to." Alaric nodded once. "I do." "He was behind her," Louis whispered. "He was holding both her arms, and he said she wasn't listening, and that if she messed up again, he'd use the belt." The guard's jaw locked. Louis kept talking, voice cracking. "I didn't know what that meant, but she flinched like she already knew." "Did he hit her there?" Louis shook his head. "Not with anything. He just pushed her against the wall again like hard." "Did she fall?" "She didn't move. That landed heavier than anything else." Alaric didn't write, didn't record. His body was memorizing every syllable, freezing it into bone. "Did she say anything?" he asked. Louis swallowed hard. "Just one thing." "What was it?" She said. "I'll try harder." Alaric exhaled slowly through his nose. His vision pulsed once, white hot around the edges. "She looked so scared," Louis whispered, but she wasn't screaming or yelling or running, just small. His fists clenched tighter again. I think he makes her feel like it's normal. All's voice when it came was gravel. You're not wrong. Louis looked up at him, really looked, and asked the question no child should ever have to form. Is Charlotte going to get hurt again? Because I told, there it was. The whole world collapsed into one whisper. Alaric didn't rush to answer. He couldn't afford to. This had to be real, true, irreversible. No, he said. Louis' lips trembled again. He said if she told anyone, she'd be sent away. That it would be her fault if everyone got mad. Who said that? Louis blinked, then whispered, Gra. Alaric's lungs locked, not for long, just long enough for reality to shift again. Did you hear her say that? He asked carefully. Louis nodded. Last week after the stairs thing. What stairs thing? She didn't walk fast enough, and Thomas said she needed correction, and the Queen said, she said she was grateful someone was setting boundaries. Louis' voice shrank. Then she told Charlotte, pain helps girls learn. Alaric didn't move, couldn't. All he could do was place one hand on the boy's shoulder and say with absolute finality, she is never going to hear that again. Sergeant Alaric Thorne stood, not with anger, not with panic, but with the kind of deliberate motion that sent a clear signal to every trained eye watching. Containment had begun. He gave Louis a small nod of reassurance, not comfort, just certainty, and adjusted his posture by 2 degrees as he turned to face the far archway. One gloved hand brushed briefly against the underside of his radio clasp. Double press, hold, release. The silent, safeguarding trigger. No voice, no code word, just a layered ping routed through the embedded sub-in network, built for one reason only, to protect royal miners when protocol alone wasn't fast enough. He didn't need to check that it went through. Within 7 seconds, it would activate a local corridor freeze. Not a full lockdown, not yet, but enough that doors would close slowly under the guise of routine. Pathways would redirect aids. Sound-insulated staff doors would buffer external chatter. And most importantly, eyes would narrow. Because the signal didn't just notify it, it recruited. 3 unformed officers with safeguarding clearance would already be on the move. No sirens, no shouting, no drama, but they'd come. They always did when the button was used. Alaric turned back to Louis, crouched again just slightly, and said, You're going to go with someone I trust. They'll take you to the blue sitting room upstairs. Nothing loud. Just wait for me. There. All right. Louis looked scared again, not of the escort, not of leaving, but of what was coming. Is he going to know I said something? Alaric's chest tightened. Not yet, but later. There was no way to lie well, so the guard chose clarity. Maybe, but you won't be alone. Louis didn't nod, but he didn't argue. Alaric tapped his comms unit once more, this time sending the secondary child extraction cue embedded in his security ID profile. 10 seconds passed, then the far service door at the corridor's end opened soundlessly. Officer Devon Miles, Internal Family Protection Unit, quiet, sharp, trusted. She made no announcement, did not call the boy's name. She simply appeared. Scarless uniform, no rifle, no noise. Louis saw her and exhaled like some part of him had been holding his breath since the moment he'd started walking toward the guard. Alaric gave one more nod. Go with her. I'll see you soon. The boy's steps were slow, uneven, but he didn't look back. Devon gently closed the door behind them, and it was as if the hallway had never held a child at all. The silence returned, but it wasn't clean anymore. It pulsed. Alaric returned to his post, not to resume stillness, but to finish the work of escalation. He began cataloging, Louis phrasing. The positioning described the prior bruises, the named threats, the behavior of silence, and he didn't feel rage. Not yet, because rage was for after, and right now, Charlotte was still somewhere inside the same building as the man who had pinned her to a wall. That meant the mission was still active. He tapped a third coded signal, inquiry request, Princess Charlotte's location. Within 6 seconds, a silent map ping returned. East Wing in a residence hallway, unescorted, alone. Alaric's fingers slid to the buckle of his rifle strap, not drawing, not shifting, just acknowledging, because the child who had been hurt had not yet been found. And when she was, the corridor would change forever. Sergeant Alaric Thorne didn't walk fast. He didn't need to, because when something was wrong inside Windsor Castle, truly wrong, speed wasn't what made people obey. It was intent. He moved through the corridor with quiet direction, passing one steward who instinctively stepped aside without speaking. A senior aide glanced up from his clipboard and paused mid-step. No one questioned him. No one called out, because the posture of a Coldstream guard in motion outside of ceremony inside of stone meant something had shifted. He reached the East Residential Wing in 40 seconds. No guards were stationed inside, only rotating staff. He found her just before the next turn. Princess Charlotte alone, small frame half-shadowed beneath the tall arch where the lantern light didn't quite reach. She stood with her back to the wall, one foot slightly turned in, her weight rocking ever so slightly between her heels. Her hands were in the pockets of a navy wool coat, too warm for the day, sleeves extended well past her wrists. She looked up, not startled, not surprised, just aware. Alaric stopped 4 paces from her. He didn't crouch, didn't soften. He knew better. She wasn't crying, but she looked like a child who had run out of tears 3 days ago. Her eyes scanned his boots, his gloves, his tunic. Then, finally, she met his eyes just briefly. "Am I not allowed to be here?" she asked quietly. Alaric didn't answer immediately. He said instead, "Someone saw you get hurt." Charlotte didn't blink, didn't flinch. She just stared at him, and for a moment he saw nothing but the exhausted face of a 10-year-old who had already decided not to deny it because it hadn't helped last time. Her voice came slow, low. He said it was my fault. Alaric took 1 step closer, still not crouching, still present. Did he? She nodded once, then lifted her arm, not fully, just enough to reach behind her neck with a small halting motion. She touched something under the collar of her coat, wincing, then lowered her hand again, fingers curling at her side. Alaric didn't ask. He spoke calmly, like a procedural line in a quiet room. "Can I see your wrist, Mom?" She hesitated. Then, without a word, she pulled her left sleeve back just a little, just far enough. Alaric saw deep purple fingerprints encircling the narrow joint. Not random bruising, not accidental knocks, full pressure marks, grip force. Too much, too recent. He stayed silent. Charlotte looked down at the floor. "He held me too hard," she said, "because I wouldn't stay still." Alaric didn't move. "Did he hurt you somewhere else?" A pause. Then she nodded. He said, "If I tell anyone, I'll be blamed. That if people get angry, it'll be my fault for not being disciplined enough." Her tone wasn't pleading. It was matter of fact, almost rehearsed. Did he use anything? Charlotte's eyes flicked upward. He said the belt was just for reminders, not punishment. Granny said, "That's how discipline worked before." Alaric's hands remained at his sides, fists closed within his gloves. What else did he say? Charlotte didn't answer immediately. Then she rolled her right sleeve back without being asked. There, on the soft skin of her forearm, were 3 parallel red abrasions, thin, angry, slightly scabbed, still healing. He said, "If I don't pull away, it won't break skin next time." All Alaric inhaled slowly through his nose. The scent of oak polish and old stone filled his chest. "He holds my face sometimes," Charlotte added, her voice flattening again, "like this." She mimed it gently. "So I remember not to talk when he's correcting me. Has anyone else seen these marks?" She shook her head. "I don't take my coat off unless I'm alone. And has he said what would happen if you did?" She nodded. "He said I'd embarrass the family, that they'd all know I wasn't mature enough yet." That sentence landed like a hammer between them because children don't invent shame. They inherit it, and what stood in front of Alaric now wasn't just a victim. It was a girl trained to believe silence was virtue. He didn't ask her for more, didn't need to. He stepped forward once more, only this time he positioned himself between her and the corridor she'd just come from. Then he pressed a coded clasp on his belt radio. Safeguarding protocol, confirmed harm, internal escalation required. Charlotte's gaze remained steady, her hands shook, but she didn't step back. She just asked in a voice barely above a whisper, "Is it okay if I'm tired?" Alaric nodded once. "You're safe now, Mom. You don't need to explain anything else." And in that moment, for the first time since he'd arrived, she looked like a child. The air shifted before the sound did. All Alaric felt it. Not wind, not cold, but presence. The kind of displacement that didn't require boots to echo or voices to call out. Just the certainty that someone was coming who expected to be obeyed. Charlotte noticed it, too. Her body tensed, not visibly, not theatrically. She didn't gasp or startle, but her arms came closer to her sides. Her shoulders drew in a fraction, and her breathing, already shallow, stopped. Then came the footsteps. Not rushed, not hesitant, measured, heavy, certain. Thomas Parker B.S. turned the corner like he'd been summoned. Not by anyone official, but by his own belief that he could fix the problem before it ever had a name. Tailored coat, polished shoes, expression unreadable, except for one thing: annoyance, not panic, not worry. Annoyance, he spotted Charlotte instantly. Didn't stop, didn't adjust course, didn't speak to the guard. He walked straight toward her with the kind of ownership that made the corridor seem small. Alaric stepped forward once, clean, firm, intercepting, until he stood directly in Thomas's path. No rifle drawn, no threat made, just presence. Thomas slowed, his gaze flicked up to the bearskin hat, then down to the guard's face. He didn't smile and didn't scowl, just evaluated. "I'll take it from here," he said coolly. All Alaric didn't respond. Thomas tilted his head. "Sergeant," he added, "you can return to your post." Charlotte remained behind the guard, half hidden, not pressed, not hiding, just using Alaric's body as the only thing she knew wouldn't move away from her. The guard's voice, when it came, was low. "Miss Windsor is under safeguarding hold." Thomas's eyes narrowed, not with fear, but calculation. "From whom?" he asked. Alaric didn't answer. Charlotte shifted. Thomas saw it. He adjusted his tone immediately. "Not warmer, just slicker. We're late," he said, directing the words over the guard's shoulder. "You remember, Charlotte, your posture exercise. You said you'd do better today." Charlotte didn't reply. She stood still, eyes locked on the floor. Thomas smiled faintly. "She gets overwhelmed sometimes. It's normal. That's why she's paired with family, not strangers." He moved a step forward. Alaric moved too, a single mirrored pace, still calm, still professional, but utterly immovable. Thomas's eyes flashed for the first time. "Is this your interpretation of protocol?" he asked, voice harder now, "because I assure you, It's not going to hold up when you're explaining it to the lieutenant colonel. She's showing signs of physical injury, Alaric said evenly. She's a child, Thomas replied. They fall, they bruise, they test boundaries. That's what children do. She flinched when she saw you. Thomas's lips parted slightly. Then he stepped forward again. Charlotte inhaled sharply. She didn't move, but her body prepared to. You could see it. Her knees bent slightly, her shoulders tensed, and her right hand went to the wrist he had grabbed the week before automatically. Thomas reached out, not to hit, not to drag, just to touch her shoulder. A gesture meant to look innocent, a reassertion of control. Alaric's gloved hand rose between them, flat, silent, intercepting the air before contact could be made. Not violence, boundary. Thomas stared at the hand like it had insulted him. She needs firm handling, he said, voice low now, meant only for all Alaric to hear. Otherwise, she ends up weak like her mother. Charlotte flinched, a small reflexive jerk of her frame. And that was the moment. All Alaric lowered his hand only to take one clean step forward and say without inflection, "Back away from the child." And Thomas didn't move, but the temperature of the corridor had already changed because whatever game he thought he was playing, he had just lost control of the board. The voice came from behind. "Thomas, what on earth is taking so long?" Queen Camilla's heels clicked against the stone like punctuation, sharp, final, impatient. She appeared around the bend with the usual theatrical pace of someone used to doors being opened before she reached them. She stopped short at the sight, Charlotte standing behind a cold stream guard, Thomas frozen mid, motion and Alaric not moving aside. Camilla's eyes narrowed instantly. "Sergeant," she said, "step away. You're blocking my grandson." Alaric didn't move. Princess Charlotte is under an active safeguarding hold. Camilla blinked as if she had misheard. Then she laughed, short, dry, unbothered. "Oh, for heaven's sake, again with this." Her tone sharpened. "She bruises like a peach, always has. There's nothing abnormal about that. You guards aren't trained in child development." Alaric's eyes didn't leave hers. There are grip marks on her wrists, parallel abrasions on her forearm, a bruised clavicle. None are consistent with accidents. Camilla's smile vanished. Thomas exhaled sharply like the theater had become tiresome. "Charlotte," Camilla said sweetly, pushing past Alaric's shoulder. "Now, darling, come here." These men are just confused. Charlotte didn't move, her eyes stayed low. Camilla's tone sharpened. "Charlotte." Still no response, so she pivoted back to the guard. "This is hysterical." She snapped. "She's dramatic. Always has been. You'll see. There's nothing to this." Charlotte's voice came then, quiet, flat, not broken, just resigned. "She said it would stop if I behaved." Camilla froze. She didn't respond at first. Then she smiled again. "The wrong kind. The one that's meant for photographs, not children. She's twisting things," she said to no one in particular. "We've told her before that acting out gets attention. She knows how to play people." Thomas folded his arms. Charlotte looked down and whispered, "I wasn't playing." Camilla turned on her like a snapped branch. "You were," she hissed. "You always do this. You manipulate people." Alaric's voice sliced through the space between them. "Enough." Camilla stepped back, stunned. He continued, tone unshaken. "She has visible injuries. She's given a clear account. She has corroboration from a witness. And now you are attempting to publicly discredit a 10-year-old under institutional protection." Camilla's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Thomas's family, she managed. He knows how to correct behavior without coddling. Charlotte flinched, not because of the word, because of how familiar it was. Alaric didn't take his eyes off the queen. Princess Charlotte said you told her pain helps girls learn. Camilla's mouth hardened. She glanced sideways at Thomas as if unsure what had been overheard. She needs structure, she said. That's all. Someone who doesn't fold every time she sulks. Charlotte's voice returned, no longer whispering. She told me girls who speak too much end up alone. Silence heavy. Then Charlotte said the line that turned the entire room against Camilla. She told me if I cried, it meant I was weak like mommy. Camilla flared, that's not what I said. She told me, Charlotte continued, that Thomas was helping. That was it. There was no rescue left for Camilla in that moment. No redirection, no press-ready quote, no narrative because the child she had conditioned not to speak had spoken. And this time the guard didn't just believe her. He stood in front of her. And Camilla, for once in her public life, found herself speaking into a space where no one listened, where her words meant nothing, and her silence had already said too much. Catherine arrived without announcement, no aids, no preamble, no carefully timed entrance, just the sound of hurried footsteps that slowed abruptly as she rounded the corner and took in the scene. All at once, the guard standing firm, Charlotte pressed into the narrow space behind him, Camilla rigid with fury, and Thomas fixed in place like a man who had just realized the room no longer belonged to him. Catherine's eyes went straight to her daughter, not her face, her posture, the way Charlotte's shoulders were drawn tight, the way her chin lifted a fraction too high, as if bracing for correction, the way her hands hovered near her sides, unsure whether to hide or hold. Catherine crossed the remaining distance in 3 quiet steps. She didn't touch Charlotte yet. She knelt instead, lowering herself so her eyes were level with her daughter's. Her voice, when it came, was steady, too steady for the situation, and therefore terrifying to anyone who understood what it meant. "Charlotte," she said softly, "look at me." Charlotte did. Her eyes filled instantly, not with tears, but with relief that cracked something inside her. Catherine took a slow breath. "Did someone hurt you?" Charlotte's lips parted. She nodded once. Catherine closed her eyes for a heartbeat. When she opened them again, whatever warmth had been there before was gone, replaced by something glass-hard and precise. She rose, only then did she place a hand on Charlotte's shoulder. Not possessive, not dramatic, protective, deliberate. "Who?" Catherine asked. Charlotte didn't answer. She didn't need to because another small figure had appeared at the far end of the corridor. Prince Louis. Officer Miles walked him in gently, one hand hovering just behind his back, not pushing, not guiding, just ready. Louis's face was blotchy from crying. His eyes were red. He looked smaller than before, swallowed by the stone walls. Catherine saw him, and something in her expression shifted again. "Louise," she said quietly. He took one step forward, then stopped, his gaze locked on Thomas, his breath hitched, and then, with the blunt honesty only children had, he raised a shaking finger. "Him," Louis said. "I saw him do it." Thomas's face drained of color. "No," he said sharply. "This is ridiculous." Prince William's voice cut through the corridor like a blade. "Enough." He stepped into view with controlled speed. Coat half buttoned, gloves clenched in one hand. His eyes took in the scene in seconds. Charlotte's guarded posture. Louis' shaking frame, the guard standing like a barrier. Thomas pale and rigid. Camilla visibly unraveling. William didn't look at Camilla. He went straight to his children. He crouched in front of Louis first. "What did you see?" he asked. Louis swallowed hard. Tears spilled again. He pushed her. Louis whispered. And he grabbed her, and he said not to cry. William didn't interrupt. He nodded once, then turned to Charlotte. "Is that true?" Charlotte nodded again. Slower this time, exhausted, William stood. The air changed. Thomas Parker Bowles, he said evenly, "You are to step away from my children immediately." Thomas scoffed, panicked, sharpening his voice. "This is a misunderstanding now." Security moved instantly. 2 officers stepped in, not aggressive, not rushed, each taking a position at Thomas's arms. He jerked once in surprise, then froze when he realized they weren't letting go. Camilla surged forward. "You can't do this. He's family." William turned on her then, and whatever she saw in his face made her stop cold. "You normalized harm," he said. "You minimized it. You taught my daughter to be silent. That's not you will not speak." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. William turned back to the officers. "Detain him under emergency, safeguarding statute." No contact with either child. Thomas protested once weakly. Then the grip on his arms tightened, and he was turned away, footsteps carrying him down the corridor that moments ago he had walked with entitlement. Camilla's breath came fast. "This will destroy everything." William faced her fully now. "You are barred from unsupervised access to my children," he said. "Effective immediately until a full inquiry concludes." Camilla's mouth opened. No sound came out. Catherine moved then, placing herself fully between Charlotte and the rest of the world. She took her daughter's hand. Charlotte clung to it without hesitation. William extended his other hand to Louis. "Come here," he said. Louis obeyed. The children stood together, still shaken, still small, but no longer alone. William nodded once toward the guard. "Thank you, Sergeant." Arlick Thorne returned the nod, sharp, absolute, his face pale beneath the brim of his bare skin. The system had moved, and it had not hesitated. The corridor emptied without ceremony, no raised voices, no rushing feet, no crowd drawn by spectacle. Thomas Parker B.S. was gone, escorted down a passage he had walked freely for years, now silent beneath the weight of hands that did not loosen. Camilla followed a different route, flanked, her posture stiff with disbelief rather than dignity, her voice finally absent from the stone. Catherine and William did not hurry their children. They moved with purpose, not speed. Charlotte walked between them, her hand locked in her mother's grip. Louis holding his father's fingers so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Neither child looked back. Neither needed to. As they passed Sergeant Alaric Thorne, Charlotte slowed just for a second. She looked up at him, not searching, not afraid, just checking, as if confirming that the man who had stood still when the world pressed in on her was still there. He was. All Alaric met her gaze and dipped his head once. Not a smile, not comfort, recognition. Charlotte nodded back, then she was gone. Swallowed gently by the inner corridor, by parents, by protection that had arrived only minutes too late, but still in time to matter. The sound of their footsteps faded. The corridor returned to quiet, not the old quiet, a different one. Alaric remained where he was. He did not straighten immediately. He didn't need to. His knees still remembered the stone. The shock had not fully burned off yet. His hands rested at his sides, fingers flexing once inside the gloves, as his breathing finally slowed to something even. He replayed nothing. There was no triumph to savor, no righteousness to indulge, only procedure completed. Containment achieved, a child removed from harm. That was enough. A steward passed at the far end of the corridor and stopped instinctively when he saw the guard still standing there, posture rigid, eyes forward. After a moment, the man nodded and moved on, sensing, without being told, that something fundamental had shifted in this place. All Alaric adjusted the strap across his chest, a small movement, automatic. Then he returned fully to his post, back straight, eyes forward. Stillness reclaimed because protection didn't announce itself. It didn't celebrate. Sometimes it happened in whispers and trembling hands. Sometimes it happened when a soldier dropped to one knee and chose not to look away. And when it was done, the castle went on standing, but it was standing corrected. Would you have believed a terrified child if he could barely speak? How many truths stay hidden, because the ones who saw them are too scared to be heard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story stayed with you, tap like, hit subscribe, and make sure the bell icon is on so you don't miss what we bring tomorrow. Then share this video with someone who believes silence should never protect power. Your next Royal Guard videos should already be on screen. Pick one and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time with a brand new